Hey everyone, you're joining me in my bathroom. We're having another Tub Talk at Holistic Vanity. I'm Kristen Moff from Holistic Vanity, and today we're going to be talking about stress and how stress affects your body and of course how that affects your skin. And today I'm joined with Natalie Shea, a stress counselor who I personally have seen and benefited from. And she's going to give me and you her tips and insights into stress and stress management. So great to have you here, Natalie.
Thanks for having me.
So, as you know, personally, again, because you've worked with me, that stress is such a huge part of staying healthy and resilient, and again, how you look and feel. But I think it's important to start from the beginning. So I want to know if you can shed some light on how that manifests in the body. Like, why do we care about managing stress, also, and how that translates like physically?
So that's a great question, because what we look at is actually it affects our body and manifests in such different ways in everyone. But our heart rate increases, our blood pressure increases, so many different things. Weight gain, weight loss, acne, all these different things contribute to what we see on the outside of stress management.
And it's interesting that you talk about like blood pressure and you talked about acne, because I know before you had explained to me about a lack of blood flow into the skin and how that stress affects the skin in that way. So I also imagine it would create like dullness and like devitalized complexions too.
Yeah, well, what happens is oxygen and blood flow stops going into the skin when you're stressed, and we go into the fight or flight response, and when that continuously happens, then there's less blood flow and less oxygen, which causes dehydration to our skin as well as acne. So we see a lot of times, and I'm sure you see this a lot in your business, when people come in and are stressed, and you'll see they have acne or combination skin or dry skin.
For sure, and premature signs of aging, which is never a fun
It's a big one.
But what I also find in my practice is that people are stressed and you can see it in their skin and they don't feel well, but they don't identify that they're stressed out. That actually, like, you do a facial on them and they're like, wow, I feel so good, and it almost is like an epiphany. They're like, oh, I didn't know I was so stressed. So I was wondering if you could give us some tips on how we can identify that we are under chronic stress.
Well, living in our society, most people do have stress. I do a quick questionnaire with my clients before I meet with them to see if they are good candidates, and I send it off to them, and it takes them about 5 or 10 minutes to complete. But for this purpose, to give you some ideas, we look at do you feel like you don't have enough hours in the day to complete what you want to do? Another thing would be if you try and finish other people's sentences. If you
I do it all the time. You're like
answer now. Another thing would be is if your sex drive changes. That's a big one as well.
Yeah.
Trying to not wanting anyone else to do the work because you just want to do it yourself. The impatience is a big thing. So if you start noticing that in yourself, it's a good sign that you have stress indicators in your body that are coming out.
Oh, that's so interesting. So we were talking about sort of like your response to stress and as an expression, but you and I have also talked about health and how health is sort of like a foundation for being stress-free and like comfortable in your body and relaxed. So can you shed some light on how taking care of yourself is part of stress management? Because I think it translates into my philosophy of taking care of yourself holistically also translates into a beautiful skin.
Well, there are different ways to take care of yourself. So the foundation and the basics are eat well and sleep. Because as soon as we see people aren't sleeping, they're going to be more stressed. So if you take someone like a new mother, she probably, with the lack of sleep, will cause her to cry at the drop of a hat. Someone can just say something the wrong way, and she may lose it. So that's just one example, but eating right and sleeping right and taking care of your skin and your body and exercising are the basic foundations. So those are important to have in place.
Yeah, I think that's really important to emphasize because I think a lot of people I know who are very high stress think, oh, I just need to like talk myself out of it. And I think that is important, like doing positive affirmations and things like that, but also making sure that our body's resilient enough to be able to cope with like different stressors and like different challenges in our lives as well.
That's a really good point. I do think though when we look at the psychological and physiological aspect of things though, we over time create habits for ourselves. So these habits cause us stress. in order to change that, it's not as easy as just saying, I'm going to stop thinking about this, I'm going to look at positive affirmations and say them every day.
Right.
We have to learn new techniques to break those old habits and create new effective habits. And that's what I do with my clients. I help them break the old stressful habits and create new effective habits.
Yeah, and obviously that would be like an individualized program.
Yeah, because you can't really, it's not one size fit all cookie cutter.
For sure. So you mentioned new mothers and like lack of sleep. And lack of sleep is something that I've struggled with and that I know a lot of other dehydrated, sort of like depleted skin clients of mine have struggled with. So how does stress play a role in insomnia?
Okay, when we look at insomnia, we have to take a look at if you had insomnia before you've had stress, or if it's something that has just developed when you've had a stressful experience in your life. So look back to even high school or university. If you've had stress at that point, then it may be something that's medical. So that's one thing to say that's really important, because it's not always going to be stress related. If it is stress related, you can tell that by keeping track. So if you find that you're in a high stress job or things that are going on, you have high stress levels that fluctuate high and low, and your sleep is affected by that, then it's habits that have to be changed. There are so many different techniques out there to help you if you are having trouble sleeping, falling asleep, staying asleep, that you want to incorporate some new techniques and new habits. So to give you some examples.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, give us some, if we can
I saw the look, yeah.
Yeah, because I was like, yeah, you know, Pierre, we just want to like know. But so that people just have something they can like say, like, okay, I'm going to try these sort of like tangibles. You could give us your tips on like sort of combating insomnia and like obtaining restful sleep.
Yeah, so I'd say most people come and they have trouble falling asleep because their mind's racing, they're on the go, they can't unwind, and they want to go to sleep at a reasonable hour to get 6 to 8 hours of sleep a night. The first thing I say is always keep a piece of paper and a pen by your bed, and whenever you have any thoughts coming, which happens quite often, write it down. Because what happens is it will go in your minds and it will keep racing and racing and racing. This way, at least it's out on paper, and you'll notice a big difference that it will stop racing in your mind, and you can put it on paper. The other thing is have a pen and paper there for when you have things that come up, like a to-do list. If you remember to do something, instead of trying to remember it for the morning, write it down. It sounds so simple, but it makes such a big difference. Some other ideas are don't do anything in your bedroom besides sleeping. So don't do work in there, don't watch television. You want it pitch black, dark, so you get a good night's sleep and you go into REM sleep. Another big thing would be to do something relaxing before you do go to sleep. So if it's walk the dog around the block, if you enjoy that, or taking a bath with some essential oils. Good quality essential oils are actually really important, and you can take that and will relax the body and the mind. So there are different things you can do. Think about what you find relaxing, create a list of what you enjoy, and pick 7 different things and do something different every day.
Those are amazing suggestions, and I think that people will get a lot out of them. But what I really wanted to ask you was about some of the suggestions you've given me through our work together, because you've given some really concrete examples. So I was wondering if you could give us some of those more like tangible tips.
Yeah, getting right into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah.
Okay. So a big one is work-life balance, and most people find they struggle with that. A very easy way to get that started is most people these days have a BlackBerry or can get email right away, is to start turning off their BlackBerry or mobile device for 10 minutes a night. It sounds really simplistic, but if you graduate and start doing 10 minutes for the first week or two, then 20 minutes, then half an hour, and see what your comfort level is. So for some people it's half an hour, some people it will be 2 hours or all night. Slowly build it up, because what happens is people think, oh, I can do that. They turn off their BlackBerry all night, and then it lasts 2 or 3 days, and it's like crash dieting. Then you miss it so much that you just go back right into your old ways.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, just small changes are the key to success. Something else that would be really helpful and important would be communication. A lot of people are nervous to speak their mind because of confrontation. So they get nervous that if they speak, it's going to start an argument. So they avoid it, and they hold it in their bodies, and that causes stress. So a really easy way to make a change is to do what we call the WIN formula. And that is, when you do this, I felt this, now I need you to do this. So to give you an example, let's say you're making dinner and your partner comes home and is supposed to be bringing home some of the groceries, and they forget. that can cause a really big fight where you may not speak all night. So instead of getting in an argument or holding it in, just communicating effectively. So when you didn't bring home the groceries, I felt I was upset because I wasn't able to cook dinner. Next time I need you to give me advance notice so I can prepare.
So it's more like focusing on a solution rather than just concentrating on the issue and the sort of the conflict at hand.
Right, or even just getting it out of your body. You don't necessarily need a solution, but just getting it out of your system so it's not building up. So instead of saying, why didn't you bring home the groceries, or why didn't you do this, doing it in a more respectful way and a more communicative way that's healthy.
For sure.
Something else that would be really helpful would be something as simple as breathing. You don't necessarily need to do a DVD or listen to a CD, which most people tell you, for half an hour a day, because that's not really realistic. Something as simple as doing 3 sets of 10 reps of breathing exercises at your desk or when you get home or before you go to sleep really relaxes you. So to give you an actual visual, if you take your hands and you put them on your stomach, I don't know if you can see this, but so have the tips touching each other, and as you inhale through your nose, expand, so you're going to expand your stomach out, and your fingertips should not be touching anymore.
Okay.
So inhale, and then exhale, and they'll be touching again. Inhale, exhale. Let's do it one more time. So inhale, and exhale. This relaxes the body and the mind, and you can use a good quality essential oil and breathe in. I like lavender personally, and keep it at your desk if you want, and it'll help relax the body and the mind. I'm feeling quite relaxed.
Me too.
Right now.
I'm like, less stressed.
So doing that a couple times a day really does slow everything down, and that's our goal: is to slow things down, become more grounded, and just learn to relax a bit more.
So I wanted to conclude our Tub Talk today with talking about the role of a stress counselor, because obviously, like, I've seen you and I understand to a certain degree like how one can be like aided by a stress counselor, but I just want to explain to other people what exactly you do, and also sort of like what they should be looking for when they're like looking for a stress counselor.
Okay, great question. So with stress counselor, my background is psychotherapy. So I started as a psychotherapist, and I look at the whole person. I think it's really important that when you are seeking out advice from a stress counselor, looking at what their background is to make sure they are qualified, because it'd be very easy for anyone to call themselves a stress counselor.
Yeah.
So you want to find someone that's qualified. What they do and what a role of a stress counselor would be is to look at what your habits are, what stresses you out, whether it be career, relationships, could be just personal growth, it could be friends and family, it could be not having enough time for activities you like, looking at all these things and establishing what is most important to the client. So when these things come up and when you look at what stresses them out the most, you work on creating new effective habits. So I work with someone weekly and help them create new effective habits. And I keep mentioning habits because it's all about change. So you want to make small changes over a long period of time. So when you're looking for someone, ask them what their process is, ask them how they make changes. Even nobody can give you an exact idea of how long it can take, but I can tell you that it shouldn't take more than 4 to 6 months to see drastic changes.
For sure. And also, I know with me that we sort of had like an intro session, and you did an assessment, and then we revisited things, and you can see like tangibly from like that questionnaire I filled out what the shift has been. Because sometimes you also don't realize how dramatic of a shift that has taken place, because it's like everything you move through your life, and you don't really notice the subtleties of how your behavior has changed.
That's a good point. So I use a tool actually where I assess where they start, and then we reassess it, as you mentioned, in 4 to 6 months afterwards, so they can see the improvements themselves. And it doesn't have to be me telling them, but they can see it and they feel the changes.
Yeah, and someone like me who's like pre-typing, I like to see like on paper like what exactly was the measurement of this. But so finally, where can we find you if people want more recommendations and tips and insights? Where can they reach you?
Well, they can email me at natalieshay@gmail.com, and I also am starting a weekly newsletter as well, so they can email me and I can put them on that too.
Perfect. Well, thanks for joining me in my beauty mecca.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Yeah, And hopefully we'll have you again. And also, if you want to check out more tips and recommendations on holistic beauty, you can check out my YouTube channel, Holistic Vanity, or I'll be posting this interview and others with other practitioners on my website, holisticvanity.com. So we're going to say goodbye for now and wish you a happy, stress-free day.